Good morning, this is Rebecca Martinez from artscalifornia.net, and today I'm in the studio of Quirky Creations, also known as Judy Butler. She's going to tell us what the answer to what is fused glass. A lot of people are curious about it, and she is the expert. So, Judy, we're standing here in front of some of your creations, beautiful pieces. Is this a serving platter?
Yes. So both of these are platters. They're done with a process that is fusing glass and also using enamels, because I like to draw and paint also. And so I enjoy getting to paint on the glass. And then the enamels are fused into the glass. So it's all very food safe and it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. And I know that you're a fanatic sketcher. You love to sketch things. And are these some of your sketches?
I love to just look at everything that's around. And so I did this a year or so ago when the leaves were falling, and so I just brought in a whole bunch of leaves like these. And then I started drawing the leaves. So here's natural leaves.
Yeah.
And I love to play with the glass. I mean, I've yet to find anything that the glass can't do, and so that's one of the things that I enjoy doing, is experimenting. And so this year I was playing around with looking at these leaves and then creating my own leaves out of glass. And so this is a glass leaf.
Oh my gosh.
So these leaves are all made from glass.
So you recreated.
Mm-hmm.
Was the leaf consumed in this process?
No, I was just looking at the leaf.
Wow, you are a good
And so this is
illustrator.
done with a process that is using frit, and frit is ground glass, and so I use the ground glass and then just layer the glass and put it into the kiln. And the kiln is an essential part of fusing the glass. You have to have a kiln. There's no flame involved in this process. I don't do well with flames, so there's no flames.
Okay.
But those are some of my little playing around with things. I love it when it gets the little holes in there.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
So,
And I don't know if the viewers can see back here, that's your frit, right?
yes. So frit comes in a variety of sizes that you can purchase. You can also make your own frit. And basically frit is just a term referring to ground glass. And so it can come as fine as powder, and it can come as big as chunks. So it just kind of depends on what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Then you just kind of sprinkle it on the
You can sprinkle it, you can sift it, I have spoons that I can play around with.
You can probably blend the colors.
Yep, you can do all sorts of things.
All right.
And then also you can use the ground glass with water and use it as a paste and paint with it for a palette knife. And so that's what I've used for doing some of my paintings up there, up by Reggie the Rooster. I don't know if you can see that, but they're done with a ground glass where I painted with a palette knife.
Which one is that?
Up by the rooster.
Oh,
The
right,
mask,
right.
yeah.
Okay, the two flowers.
Yeah.
Pretty, very pretty.
Again, something to experiment with.
And did you use some of the frit on this piece?
Yeah, this piece here, again, I was playing around with making leaves, and I felt like it would be fun to incorporate the leaf in with a natural object, which would be the rock. And I also created this scene by layering, I think this was like 5 layers.
Wow.
So I started with a semi-opaque white, and then I went in with ground glass and enamels and stringers, which is glass that comes in little thin lines, and then also with more enamels, and just kept on layering it until I fused it all together.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I see you have some of your tools here.
Yeah, I have some tools. So this is an example of some of my more typical pieces. I just created this the other day. And this is a piece in which I started out with a white piece of glass, And then I had all of these other colors that I cut up and layered on top. And then I detailed it with some enamels, and then I put it into the kiln. Then once it came out of the kiln, I glued it onto these little boxes, which I really enjoy doing the little boxes, because that way then the artwork can hang.
Right, and it gives it a
So-
nice depth too, because you've
Yeah.
got the depth going on here.
Mm-hmm. So this was an idea that I came up with, and I've really enjoyed getting to create imagery that can hang on the wall, because there's only so many plates people want.
Uh-huh.
But there's always some place for a cute cat or
And
something.
these are all your own illustrations,
Oh, yeah,
I know.
yeah. Yeah, and they are illustrations, is basically what they are. They're illustrations that I'm doing using glass. So, okay, so my tools that I use are, these guys are little nippers. They're
Uh-huh.
great. I use these enormously because I can put a piece of glass in between here, put my hand over it, just do a little nip, and it gives me little pieces. And sometimes those little pieces are perfect, especially when I'm doing something like this little kitty nose, you know, something small. This really, really helps.
Okay.
Excuse me. Then I also have my glass cutter.
Uh-huh.
And the glass cutter has a little wheel on the end of it. And cutter is actually a misnomer. It's not, it doesn't cut anything. It just likes to explain to the glass where you want it to break.
Uh-huh.
And so if you notice, it doesn't cut.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of nice. So I'm just going to explain to this glass where I want it to break. So I'm going to hold this glass cutter so that it's fairly vertical.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to go from one side to another side, either away from me or towards me, doesn't matter a bit. But you have to go all the way across. You can't go halfway. You know, things in life don't work if you just go halfway. Same
Uh-huh.
for glass.
Okay.
So I'm going to go all the way across, and you're going to listen for this little sound. Okay, so it's going to be, do you hear it?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I went all the way across, and there's this little tiny line in here, and then I'm going to use my last tool, which are these running pliers. And the running pliers have a little frowny face. That's how you know that this is the top. And
Okay.
there's also a line on there, which is hard to see. So I line the line up with the top of the score that I just made, and I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure, just a little bit. I don't have big muscles. So just a little bit, and there it breaks.
That's great.
And so it's really addicting. So the first time I did this was when I was teaching high school. And I wanted to learn about glass for my classroom. And as soon as I started trying this, I'm just going, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And so it totally sucked me in. So I used it some in my high school classroom, but there went my paychecks. Well, then I'll show you how you can use the nippers.
Okay, that goes.
And so now that we've got these little shards, is all I want to do is just get that little end off, and that's all there is to it.
Nice.
And the main thing is, when you're using the nippers, is just to put your hand over it, because you also don't want to create a bullet, you know, where it's going to
Right.
fly across the room.
Right.
Also, one of the things to be aware of when you're doing glass for any technique is that you want to make sure that you have vision protection. So I permanently wear vision protection, but some people don't, and so in that case then they wear eye protection, just like
Uh-huh.
you would doing any other like shop
Yeah.
techniques. Okay,
Yes.
so that's something to be aware of. Then another thing that I use a lot is good old super glue.
Uh-huh.
Some people don't use super glue, they use a wide variety of materials. But the glue is really helpful for, let's say, I want to put these two pieces of glass together, and then I want to walk over to the kiln, okay? In which case, you know, sometimes I trip or the dog bumps into me or whatever, and so I need to make sure it's going to stay there.
Yes.
So all I do is I take my super glue and I put a little dot there, and then it's going to stay in place with this one on top, so that when it goes into the kiln, I know that it's probably going to come out in that position.
Right, and the super glue is gone when it comes
Right,
out.
the super glue burns off, and it also does not leave a residue, and so you don't end up seeing it once
Yeah.
you're done. So that's kind of nice to be able to have a little bit of control. But one of the things that I really do love about fused glass is simply the fact that it really does have a lot of surprise.
Yeah.
You don't always get what you're expecting. So, for example, okay, so this is the type of glass that I use. Okay?
Bullseye glass.
Yeah, all of my glass is created by this manufacturer. And that's important to me simply because of the fact that I need to know that when my glass goes into the kiln and it gets heated up and then cooled down, that it's not going to argue with another piece of glass. And so it has to have the same coefficient of expansion. So the artists refer to that as their COE, coefficient of expansion. And so my glass is all COE 90. So this glass that we were playing around with is very inexpensive. It's just little pieces of window glass. If I took this window glass and put it with the glass that I use for this, it would argue in the kiln, and arguments end up breaking. So we don't use this type of stuff. So this ends up going into the garbage when I'm done with it.
Right.
So the nice thing about this is that all of the glass that this company produces up in Portland, they guarantee that all of their glass has the same coefficient of expansion. And the way that they can guarantee that is that they test it. And so all that testing, of course, ends up creating expense. So this is not a cheap hobby to get into.
So speaking of expenses, would you mind telling me about how much some of these items would sell for in a gallery? Because I know you're in a couple of galleries.
Yeah.
Which galleries are you in?
So I'm in Auburn Old Town Gallery, and I'm also in a brand new gallery, Persimmon Art Gallery, which I totally love. And I've been in Auburn Old Town Gallery for about 5 years, and Persimmon just started. We're getting ready for our 1-month anniversary.
That's right.
Yeah. So these pieces, generally speaking, I sell the lanterns for anywhere from $65 to $85, depending on the amount of detail involved.
That's beautiful.
And then the large plates go for around $250, and the smaller plates go around $150.
Okay.
So, you know, it just kind of depends.
How about a sweet little olive dish like this?
Oh, those guys are like $35.
That's very reasonable.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, they're fun.
And this is an art piece. This is more of an art piece.
This is autumn leaves there, so let's see. This, $425 is what I had that one.
Yeah, I know you've got a lot invested in
Yeah.
that one.
Well, it took me a long time to find the rock.
Yeah.
And then I had to figure out how to cut the rock.
Yeah, how did you cut the rock?
I use my Dremel. I have yet to find anything that Dremel can't do.
Ah, okay. Okay, good. And then these sweet little wall hangings, about how much do they go for?
Little wall hangings, so this size is 50. The little square size, like these guys, are 45. And then this size goes for, I think they're 70. So, so all in that price range. 45 is my bottom price range for the wall hangings.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Judy, I'm looking at your night lights here, and I think aren't they your biggest seller?
Majorly.
Major big seller?
Yeah.
And they're just adorable, and everybody has room for a night light.
Yes.
And the price is so reasonable.
$28.
Yep. And you've got every subject
I can
imaginable.
imagine. Yes. And I also make them custom, so there are people who will contact me and say, gee, I really want a nightlight with 2 kitties, or
A scuba kitty.
Yeah, or whatever, yeah. And recently, this lady contacted me and she said, I really want to have a panda bear. And I'm thinking, panda bear, okay. So I figured out how to do a panda, and I liked him so much that he is a frequent flyer now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very fun.
So this is my favorite kiln.
Uh-huh.
I love this kiln. I don't name my kilns. I know some people do, but I don't name my kiln. This is just my favorite, and she knows she's my favorite.
She knows she's your favorite?
Yeah, because I use her all the time. So this kiln here is very lightweight. Sorry. It's very lightweight. It's called a fiber kiln, and it's made with fiber rather than bricks, okay? Like this is a brick that a lot of kilns are made out of, they're heavy. And the advantage to the fiber is simply the fact that it will heat up and cool down very quickly. And since most of my pieces are fairly small in size, then that's kind of nice, because when I'm heating up my kiln, I'm heating it to roughly 1375, 1390, somewhere in that kind of range. And to get up to that temperature, I'm usually heated at about 300 degrees an hour. And so then it cools down, and when I cool it as fast as possible down to 900 degrees. 900 degrees is important because my type of glass needs to anneal, which simply means that you need to have your molecules in the glass learn to play nice again. And so when they heat up, you know, they're all busy, and then when they cool down, they need to learn to relax, and we're going to be having our nap time together.
It's a nice session on life.
Yeah. So,
Very nice.
so that's why it has to go to 900, and then it has to stay at 900, depending on your thickness of your glass, for anywhere from a half an hour to some pieces that are really thick, they'll keep them at 900 for days.
Okay.
Okay, so anyway, so that's my favorite kiln. You'll notice with this kiln too that the elements are in the lid. And that's one of the things that makes the glass kiln different from the ceramics kiln, because the ceramics kilns, the elements are in the sides. For the glass, it's important, especially if I'm doing a little bit bigger piece, that it is heated evenly all the way across, because you don't want any cold areas, because that is the breaking thing again. Okay.
So Judy, you know so much about the science behind this, and I know that you were a teacher for many years. Do you still teach classes?
I do. I love to teach classes, and so since I have this wonderful space that we built a year and a half ago,
It's gorgeous.
that I love to teach classes. With COVID, I'm being very, very structured with the number of people, so maximum of 2 people who are already friends, and we wear masks the whole time.
Okay.
But during the olden days, the pre-COVID days,
And maybe the days soon.
in the post-COVID days, I will do 6, maybe 10 people. And there is an age limit, nobody over 120.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
That's it.
How about the lower edge?
Oh, the lower end. I've had as young as 5-year-olds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's fun.
And you do notice I have no Band-Aids.
That's amazing.
And I do glass every single day.
That's nice. That's
Yeah.
a credit to your skill.
Yeah, I learned. You don't handle the edge.
I know that sometimes you have pieces that are kind of curved. How do you do that?
Oh, that's a really good question. So if I take a piece of glass and it's already been fused, then I put it on top of either a metal or ceramic piece, like this piece here.
Yeah.
And so I would put this into the kiln, I would put my piece of glass that's flat on top of it, and then I would heat it up to about 1250 degrees. And that's just enough to get the glass to just relax, and then it curves over that shape.
That's beautiful. And that's how you do some of your bowl shapes, too.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Judy.
Yeah.
Now we know how fused glass is created.
Thank you.
Thank you.